Hello, everyone. This is Mr. Tanner, and I just want to start by thanking you all for taking the time to watch this video on how to navigate my website. I'm hoping that it'll be helpful for both students who are absent and also parents who are wanting to follow along with what we're doing in class or just become more familiar with the content that we're covering in my 6th grade social studies class. So without any further pause, let's go ahead and just learn how to navigate this website so that your students can access all their work while they're gone and you can keep up with your students as well. I'm just going to start with our first social studies units. I'm going to skip over the setting the stage for success. We'll go right to our intro to social studies unit. You can get there in two ways. You can click on the link. These text boxes are all hyperlinked in the table of contents, or you can use the navigation bar up top. Either one works, but we'll go to the intro to social studies class here. We have our syllabus that you can navigate through. You can click the arrows to go through and see all our units and classroom materials and all of that stuff. If you need it to be larger, you can also always enter these in full screen so that you can see them, and then you can even zoom in further from there if necessary. So everything that we do in class will be on here, and that includes notes and that includes assignments as well. So the first thing would be an example of a set of notes. And if your student is gone, notes are sometimes the hardest thing to make up because we don't have time in class to go back through and redo notes for individual students. So this is where the website can be really helpful. So our first set of notes of the year is going to be on the 5 themes of geography, and students will access information on that in 2 ways. The first is a reading, which again, they can access in full screen. They can go through and read about all of the 5 themes of geography: location, place, human environment interaction, movement, and region. And when they're done reading about that, they'll get to watch a kind of silly song about the 5 themes of geography. And then in class, we'll be filling out this note catcher that's located here to the right. And they'll have to just summarize in 2 or 3 key ideas: location, place, human environment interaction, movement, and region. If your student's gone and they would like to get the notes done ahead of time while they're gone, they just have to print out their own set of notes. And the way that they would do that is you just click on the picture of the notes, and then from here you can print. But what's important is when you're printing these, in order to fit in the composition notebooks that we use, you need to change the scale from default to custom and make it 82%. If you print at 82%, these notes will fit perfectly into a composition notebook, and you can just trim away the excess. The other thing is that if you want to just go through all the material, you can then get a copy of the notes from me when you return to class, and then fill it out when you have time. But at least you don't have to do all of the work when you return. So you have a printer, you can always print it out and be caught up before you even return to class. If not, I'll get you a copy when you return. Now, if it's not a PDF like this is, if it's a Google Doc file, like the latitude and longitude notes is, I've already set it so that it will fit neatly into a composition notebook. So for these ones, if you were printing out your own copy and you notice it looks really small, then you do want your scale to be the default scale, and I've already set the margins so that all these papers will fit into a composition notebook. So just keep an eye on if it's a Google Doc, you don't need to scale it. If it's a PDF file, you will need to scale your print to fit into the notebook, and then you would just watch the linked YouTube video in order to fill out all of your notes. This is just me delivering the notes. Now, task 3 here on latitude and longitude is now a Google Classroom assignment. And since I have 3 different sections with 3 different Google Classroom links, your student will have to click the right class period. Right now I've only set up period 1-2, so if they wanted to complete this assignment, they would click on the period 1-2 link. That will take them directly to the correct assignment in Google Classroom. They could open up the Google Doc and again start answering all the questions and submit it when they're done. So you can also access assignments in Google Classroom. Now for parents, since they can't directly join my Google Classroom, they won't be able to exactly see the assignment, but they could have their student log in with their school account on their computer to access it, or just help their students find the work if they're missing. This is sometimes easier than navigating directly to Google Classroom, where there might be 20 assignments in there with notes and everything by the time it's done, and it's not always easy to find a specific assignment. I'm going to skip ahead a little bit because we just have more Google Classroom assignments. This one is a 2-page design that's scrollable, so if you want to print your own copy, you would just click the box below where it says click here to print doc. Sometimes I use Google Forms for students to do practice. Again, those are linked right in here where students would click that button and then they can start answering all of the questions in the Google form. And then 2 last things that are going to be kind of unique. Sometimes we do vocab, and I will link the vocab set. If you go into the Quizlet set, you get these flashcards, and to see the definition, you just click the term. So then you get the definition on the back, sometimes with a picture. Click again, you can see delta. So you can scroll through and see if you know the definition of golf, and then once you think you know it, you can double check that you got the right answer. So there's sometimes Quizlet sets in there, and I've also included a kind of guide on how to format vocab when we write it in our notebook. I'm kind of picky about this because when students just write vocab without skipping any lines or leaving any indents, they often can't even find the term. So I have a guide on how to, format your vocabulary in your notebook really nicely to make it easy to find specific terms. All right, for the last 2 things here. Every once in a while, I'll need students to actually edit a PDF file as an assignment. It's a document that I don't have existing in a Google Doc or a Microsoft Word file, and they need to be able to edit a PDF. To do that, I use a tool called Canva, and it works essentially the same way. So students will open the link in Google Classroom, open the attachment, but when they get here, it'll have this document and it'll say edit or view template. Students all have their own copy, so they will hit edit template. They might need to click to continue in the browser. And then once you get here, they have the assignment we're working on. This one just has a map of the world. And then on the second page, 10 questions about that map. In order to edit it, you use the tools over here in this vertical bar. So you'd click on Tools, and then you can add a text box that you can move around to answer any questions. So looking at the map, is it possible to find absolute location or relative location? The answer here would be relative location because there is no coordinates for absolute location. And then they can re-drag this to make it fit nicer. They can change the text size if they need to. If it's easier to make you visible, you can change the text color, so you could use a nice red text to answer the questions. Whatever they need to do to answer these questions, they have the tools. And then when they're done and they've answered everything, they would just go back to Google Classroom and press Turn In. So if they need to use a PDF, they'll get this Canva as a tool. They don't need to pay for anything there. I provide that for them. And then the last thing is sometimes we watch video assignments with a tool called Edpuzzle, where students are watching a video, usually in class together, and then on their computers, questions will pop up as we're watching. But if your student is absent for that day and they need to make up the work, they just click again the period for that they're in, and this will tell, the logo will tell them it's Edpuzzle. And then when they click on that, it will take them to the video. And essentially, you just watch the video. But as you're going through, Arizona, every once in a while, the video will pause and a question will pop up. So you'll see that here in just a second. So this first question I just put in to be really simple. What state is the video about? You would say that it's about Arizona. Submit that. And then it'll say, good job, you got that correct. Now, normally there'd be a string of questions throughout the whole video, and when students get to the end, again, they get to submit that assignment for a grade. So sometimes videos are graded as well, and they can access those through the website. And then this will take place over a few weeks. Usually a unit takes 2 to 3 weeks to get through within a class period. And when they get to the very end of a unit, that final task, it will be the study guide. So I have the study guide on the website. They can go through. Again, you can click to print your own copy of the study guide, and then they can fill that out. Obviously, I'm not going to put tests and quizzes on this website because I don't want students to be able to access those early, but we do have quizzes and tests at the end of each unit as well. So hopefully this will make it easier for your students to stay up with their work and for you as parents to be aware of what we are covering in class as well. And once again, thank you for taking the time to watch.